What if God's plan starts with betrayal? What if the very thing you're begging him to end is the thing he's using to build you? What if the pain you're trying to escape is actually your path to purpose? We want calling without crushing, breakthrough without breaking. But that's not how Joseph's story goes. He was hated, sold, falsely accused, thrown in a prison, and God said nothing. Still, Joseph didn't fold. He didn't get bitter. He didn't stop believing. He didn't rise because life was fair. He rose because his faith held when everything else collapsed. This isn't just a Bible story. This is how you survive when heaven is silent and your heart is breaking. Let's go in. Why this story still matters. Let's be honest. Some of you are in the pit right now, abandoned by people you trusted, accused of things you didn't do, working hard, with nothing to show for it. You've been faithful, but forgotten. You've prayed, but heard nothing back. And somewhere deep inside, you're asking, is God even still writing my story, or did he close the book? That's why Joseph matters. Not because his life was perfect, but because it was a mess, and God used every part of it. The betrayal, the prison, the silence, all of it. Joseph didn't just survive the pit, he rose from it, because he never confused delay with denial, never mistook silence for abandonment. And that's the key. This story isn't about favor that came easy. It's about a man who kept showing up, even when nothing around him made sense. And that's what we're here to learn. In the next few minutes, you'll discover why your lowest moments might be the beginning of something holy, how to wait without losing your heart, and why forgiveness is often the final step before your breakthrough. This isn't just Joseph's story, it's yours. And today, we're going to find out what to do when the dream looks nothing like the journey. 1. The pit was part of the plan. When rock bottom is actually God's construction site. Let's start at the moment everything falls apart. Joseph wasn't perfect, but he had a clear sense of purpose. He had a dream, straight from God. Not a random idea, not self-made ambition. Something divine, something sacred. And like most of us when we're young and full of fire, he shared it with the wrong people. His brothers didn't just roll their eyes. They didn't tease him. They hated him. They stripped him of his robe, the one thing that symbolized his father's favor. They threw him into a pit, and then they sold him, like property, like a burden, like a dream that needed to die. Now pause and imagine. One day, you're dreaming of greatness. The next, you're in a hole in the ground, alone, dirty, forgotten, by the very people who were supposed to protect you. Let's be honest. This is where most people lose their faith. This wasn't supposed to happen. How could God allow this? If this is part of the plan, I want out. But what if the pit wasn't a detour from the plan? What if it was the plan? I know that's hard to hear, because we want to believe that divine purpose feels holy, warm, and safe. But sometimes it feels like betrayal, like being thrown away, like silence from heaven when you need answers the most. Here's the truth most people won't tell you. God will often use pain to position you where purpose can find you. Before you lead, you have to lose. Before you carry influence, you have to be emptied of ego. Before you rule, you have to learn how to depend on nothing but Him. The pit did that to Joseph. It took his status. It took his comfort. It took his security. And left him with just one thing, a choice, to trust or to turn bitter. To believe this was the end, or to believe it was just the beginning. And Joseph chose trust, not because he had clarity, but because he had character, because he believed in a God who works in silence, a God who sometimes begins his best stories in the dark. So if you're in a pit right now, emotionally, spiritually, relationally, don't assume you're off course. You might feel buried, but you're actually being planted. And the roots that grow in darkness often go deeper than the branches we see in the light. But what happens when you climb out of the pit, do the right thing, and still end up crushed again? That's where Joseph's story goes next, from the pit to the prison. Let's talk about the faith it takes when heaven is completely silent. 2. Faith in the silence when heaven goes quiet. There's a kind of pain most people don't talk about. It's not betrayal. It's not failure. It's not even loss. It's silence. You've prayed. You've obeyed. You've done everything you know how to do. And still, nothing. No answer. No breakthrough. No sign that God even sees you anymore. That's where Joseph found himself. After the pit, life seemed to finally turn around. He's bought by Potiphar, rises in favor, and proves himself trustworthy. He doesn't complain. He doesn't act like a victim. He serves with integrity. But then, out of nowhere, he's falsely accused by someone who wanted him and lied when he said no. And just like that, he's thrown in prison. No hearing, no justice, no miracle to clear his name. And maybe worst of all, God doesn't say a word, not a dream, not a sign, not a whisper. Let's be real. That silence, it messes with your head. Because when life gets dark and you hear nothing from heaven, the enemy starts speaking louder. God forgot you. You must have done something wrong. This story won't end well for you. But here's what Joseph teaches us. Silence is not absence. Delay is not denial. Just because God isn't loud doesn't mean he's not working. Because while Joseph sat in that prison cell, God wasn't punishing him. He was preparing the next door. And you don't see it yet, but neither did Joseph. He had no idea that this prison would lead to a palace. No idea that this silence was actually setting the stage for his greatest moment. So how do you stay faithful when heaven goes quiet? It's not about shouting louder. It's about being still and not shrinking. Here's what you do. Hold your posture. Keep serving. Keep showing up. Guard your heart. Don't let bitterness creep in through the cracks of confusion. Speak the truth to yourself, out loud, even when you don't feel it. You say, "My God is still here. He's still writing. And this chapter is not the end of my story." But Joseph didn't just survive the silence. He led through it. Let's talk about how he made the prison a place of purpose, and what that means for you when life feels like a place you never asked to be. 3. Excellence in the prison, lead even in the dark. Let's be honest. Prison isn't where you expect purpose to grow. It's where most people shut down. Stop dreaming. Stop hoping. Start counting the days, or stop caring completely. But not Joseph. After the betrayal, after the false accusation, after the silence of God, Joseph could have gone numb. Could have said, "What's the point of being faithful when it just gets me hurt?" Instead, he led. Scripture says in Genesis 39:22, the warden put Joseph in charge of all those held in the prison. Wait, what? He's a prisoner. Running the prison? Yes. Because your calling doesn't pause just because your life feels stuck. Joseph didn't treat the prison like a punishment. He treated it like preparation. He noticed others. He listened. He interpreted dreams. He gave hope, even when he didn't feel hopeful himself. That's what real leadership looks like. You lead even when it's not your turn to be rescued. Let me say that again. You lead even when no one's clapping, even when you're bleeding, even when you're waiting for your own breakthrough. Because faith isn't proven in the palace. It's proven in the pit, and it's refined in the prison. So the question is, what do you do when you're in a season you didn't choose? Do you check out, detach emotionally, get bitter, or do you still show up? Maybe right now you feel stuck in a job you hate, in a waiting room of unanswered prayers, in a relationship that feels like it's on life support. But what if, just like Joseph, God has positioned you there not to waste you, but to watch you grow? Because how you carry yourself in the dark says more about your character than what you do when the lights are on. But even in the prison, after doing everything right again, Joseph still got left behind, forgotten, and that's where the real test begins. Can you keep your heart soft when waiting feels endless? Let's go there. 4. Waiting without bitterness. How to wait without letting it break you. There's one word in Joseph's story that most people skip over. 2 years. After he helped Pharaoh's cupbearer, after he interpreted the dream perfectly, after he said, "Please remember me when you get out," he was forgotten. 2 years of silence, 2 years in prison, knowing he did nothing wrong, knowing he helped someone, knowing the door could open, and it didn't. And that kind of waiting breaks people, not because it's long, but because it feels so unfair. Because, let's be honest, it's one thing to suffer when you've made mistakes, but it's another to suffer after doing everything right. That's where bitterness grows. Slowly, quietly. Resentment starts to whisper. What's the point of being faithful? Why keep trying when no one sees? Maybe God forgot you too. But Joseph didn't go there. He stayed ready, stayed soft, and when Pharaoh's call finally came, he was still clear-headed, steady-hearted, and fully prepared. He wasn't just waiting, he was becoming, because waiting, by itself, doesn't build faith. Bitterness does something else entirely. Waiting only strengthens you if your heart stays soft. So how do you wait without letting it break you? Here are 3 ways to protect your heart in seasons of delay. 1. Keep showing up in small ways. You don't have to do something big, but make your bed. Send the text. Pray the prayer. Do the thing that says, "I'm still here, still standing." 2. Name what hurts, but don't let it define you. Write it down. Speak it to God. Don't numb it, but don't let it rot either. Feel it, then leave it at His feet. 3. Stay expectant, not entitled. Bitterness says, "I deserve better." Faith says, "I trust you, even here." Joseph didn't demand release. He just stayed ready when it finally came. Waiting is not the enemy. Bitterness is. And sometimes, the delay isn't because you're not ready. It's because the thing God's preparing for you isn't ready for you yet. But here's the final test. What happens when you finally get your chance? When the people who hurt you are standing in front of you, vulnerable, ashamed, and completely in your hands? That's when we learn. Forgiveness isn't weakness, it's power. Let's finish strong. 5. Forgiveness is power when you could hurt them, but choose to heal instead. This is the moment everything could have gone differently. Joseph is no longer the boy in the pit. He's not the prisoner anymore. He's the second most powerful man in Egypt, clothed in royalty, commanding armies, answering only to Pharaoh, and standing in front of him, starving, trembling, unaware, are the very brothers who betrayed him. The ones who ripped the robe off his back, who threw him in a pit and walked away, who sold him like a stranger, then lied to cover it. Joseph had every right, by human standards, to get revenge. He could have said, "Now it's your turn. Let's see how you like being powerless. You destroyed my life. Now I'll destroy yours." But he didn't. He wept. He forgave. He embraced. And in doing so, he didn't just free them. He freed himself. Because forgiveness isn't weakness. It's not forgetting. It's not pretending nothing happened. It's looking your pain straight in the face and saying, "You don't get to own me anymore. I choose freedom. I choose healing. I choose God's story, not my revenge." Let's be honest. Some of us have been carrying silent rage for years, even decades. We smile, we move on. But inside, we're still replaying the betrayal, still waiting for an apology, still stuck in a scene God is trying to redeem. Here's what Joseph teaches us. Forgiveness isn't about them. It's about who you become on the other side of the pain. So, how do you forgive like that? Acknowledge the wound, honestly. Don't downplay it. Don't spiritualize it. Joseph didn't pretend. He told his brothers what they did. He named the pain, but he didn't stay stuck in it. Recognize God's hand above human harm. He said, "You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good." When you believe God can work through the betrayal, you stop needing to rewrite the past because you've started trusting the author. Release, even without closure. Joseph never got a full apology, no long letters, no explanation. He forgave anyway, because forgiveness isn't about them deserving peace. It's about you choosing not to carry the poison. Let that sink in. Sometimes the most powerful thing you'll ever do is simply not retaliate. That's when the prison doors really open. Not around you, but within you. Joseph's story didn't just end in triumph. It ended in healing, not just for him, but for his family, and for generations that followed. Because when you forgive, you don't just end a fight, you break a cycle. So now the question is, what does that mean for your story? Let's bring it home. Trust the plan you don't yet understand. Joseph's life didn't go according to plan. Not his plan, at least. Betrayed, forgotten, imprisoned, misunderstood. But somehow, through every twist and heartbreak, God was still writing. Not skipping chapters, not wasting pain, just building a story deeper than Joseph could have imagined. And that's the message for you. You don't have to see the whole picture. You don't need every answer. You don't even have to feel strong. You just need to trust the one who sees what you don't. The pit wasn't the end. The silence wasn't the end. Even the prison wasn't the end. It was all part of the plan. A plan to prepare, not punish. A plan to refine, not reject. So if you're in the middle of a season that feels broken, don't rush to escape it. Don't curse it. Ask the deeper question. God, what are you forming in me right here? Because maybe you're not being buried, you're being planted. And what feels like darkness might actually be the beginning of your growth. If this story touched something inside you, don't just click away. Take a moment. Ask, where am I in Joseph's journey? And what's God inviting me to trust, even without the answer? Send this to someone who's waiting, in silence, in pain, in the pit. And if you're ready to go even deeper, our next video will explore how Jesus turns pain into purpose, not just for Joseph, but for all of us. Through the cross, through surrender, through unshakable love. We'll see you there. And remember, God's plan may confuse you now, but one day it will leave you speechless.